200 miles after we sold it, it started misfiring and had the coolant intrusion issues. So what do? I mean, a customer bought this vehicle, 200 miles they put on it. I ordered a short block, we put a short block in it at no cost to the customer. That's how you make a name for yourself. And our reputation is very important.
What's up, everyone? This is Car Dealership Guy. You're listening to the Car Dealership Guy podcast, which is my effort to give you access to the most unbiased and transparent insights into the car market. Let's get into today's episode. Brandon Miller is founder and dealer principal at Miller Auto. Him and his son are 50-50 partners and both first-generation used car dealers. In this conversation, we discussed launching their first dealership with only $40,000, breaking down the used car business model, how much money they make in the business, selling Teslas in cold Wisconsin, today's challenges for small car dealers, acquiring inventory in an intensely competitive market, and much more. This was a unique episode. I felt like the CDG podcast had plenty of massive dealer groups on as guests, but we were really lacking some representation from the small guys. So I hope to start filling that gap with Brandon Miller being the first. Before we get into the show, this episode is brought to you by Podium, the lead conversion platform for car dealerships. Podium helps you get found at the top of Google search and convert new leads faster with industry-leading communication tools and AI. With Podium, you can finally take the guesswork out of lead management, bring every lead into one unified inbox, respond automatically in 2 minutes or less, and even book appointments using AI. Get Podium and get ready to convert leads faster than ever and see why over 100,000 businesses like yours have given themselves an instant advantage with Podium. Get started today with 10% off your plan by texting Car Dealership Guy to 833-441-1166. That's 833-441-1166. Text that number and mention this podcast to get 10% off your plan or visit the link in the show notes below. This episode is also brought to you by CDK Global. CDK Global has been empowering nearly 15,000 dealers with the tools and technology they need to build deeper relationships with customers. Their team is keenly aware of the state of dealership technology, and while many vendors promise seamless experiences between your CRM, DMS, digital retail, and fixed ops, most of these bolt-on solutions tend to break workflows and cause more harm than good. That is why CDK has launched a new dealership experience platform. This new integrated software consists of everything you need to operate a dealership efficiently while delivering an unparalleled experience to your customers. Basically, everything working together, not separate, one system to run your dealership as opposed to 10. CDK developed it with an outside-in approach, listening to dealers every step of the way. You can learn more about CDK's dealership experience platform by visiting cdkglobal.com/DXP or clicking the link in the show notes below. How do you go from, launching this business to vertically integrating your business, launching all these adjacent businesses and truly, building something special in, your state of Wisconsin? So that's what we're going to dig into. Before we dig into that, I do have one question for you. Is it true that you were the mayor of your town?
You did some digging, yes. Yes, I was.
You like that?
Yep.
What's the connection there? How'd you, mayor, dealer? Yeah.
Yeah. So at the time, I've been in the auto business, since my early 20s. But I took probably, I want to say about 8 years that I wasn't involved in the auto business. And I owned a website design company, a computer store, and got roped into being a partner of accounting business and tax practice. And while I was doing those two businesses, I was asked to run for mayor of the city that the businesses were in. And
what city was that?
City of Gillett, Wisconsin. Small little, 1,300 people.
Small little place that we've never heard of. Putting it on the map.
Right. And I was an outsider. Small communities, typically, if you're a mayor, you've lived there your whole life, so forth. I'd lived there for about 4 or 5 years when I was elected. And yeah, we, the city had some accounting issues, infrastructure issues, stuff like that. And we decided that we needed to make a change. So we did, and I did one term, and I wasn't going to run for a second term, just for personal reasons. My father was getting sick. He was diagnosed with cancer, and I just didn't want it anymore. But the department heads and so forth talked me into running because they didn't want me to go. So I did run, but I didn't put my effort into it, and I was relieved when I wasn't reelected. So
Yeah, you didn't really want it. So wait, just explain to me, you were a dealer before this already?
no. At that point, I was um, primarily my automotive was management. Automotive experience was management. So when I was about 20, I had my first job as a mechanic at Iowa 80 Truck Stop, which is the world's largest truck stop. And I did that for a short amount of time, and then I almost immediately went into management of auto repair shops and so forth. I managed a Midas in Fort Wayne, Indiana, for about a year and a half, and so I've always, shortly after entering the field, I've primarily been in management of some aspect of the automotive business. So I didn't really get into a car dealership until after I was mayor. And then I ended up,
What was that transition like? Like why become a dealer?
well, because I love cars. Cars are kind of,
Oh, so you're a car guy.
I'm a car guy. Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, from the time I think I owned probably 5 or 6 cars before I had my driver's license.
That doesn't always work out, by the way. Like a lot of times, like the car passionate person does not do well in the car business.
Yeah, for sure.
For obvious reasons. You get too emotionally attached to metal that needs to be sold for a profit. So.
And I'm actually very good at separating that. That was one of the things that I had to kind of teach my son when we first started, working together and so forth. Well, he was starting to flip cars before we even started the business, and he'd get excited about a car. Oh, I really like this. I'm like, you got to take that out of your equation, bud. You're going to get attached to it. You're either going to overpay for it, or you're not going to want to sell it.
Oh my goodness, that's great. So wait, your son worked with you. How do you guys split up your roles?
My son owns 50% of the business. We're 50-50 partners. We started the business when he was 21, which is 2 years ago, and he invested as much capital as I did to get it off the ground. And
how much capital did you guys invest to start it?
We invested $40,000, believe it or not.
Wow. So 40,000 each or 20,000 each?
20,000 each.
Okay. And then what did you do with that first 40 grand?
So we identified. Well, we weren't even really thinking. We had talked a little bit about starting a dealership or an auto business. I was working for a company that I was transporting vehicles, so I was all over the state. And I was on my way back from a delivery and saw the property that we have in Amro. And the property we're in Amro has been a dealership since 1986. And it was right around COVID that they closed the doors. He retired, moved to Texas, and the property was available. So when I was in high school, I remember coming through this dealership, looking at cars all the time, just seeing what he had on his lot and so forth. So it's kind of ironic that we now own the property. And anyway,
look at that. Look at funny how the world works.
But I was driving past and I saw it was for sale, and I pulled in and I got Boston on the phone and I said, "Hey, this property is available." And I peeked in the windows, kind of saw the lifts and so forth, and thought, this could be a possibility. And I took a picture of the realtor sign out front and made a phone call on my way back to my house. And a month later, we were in the property.
Okay, so you use some of the cash, I guess, to buy the property. What do you do about inventory? Like, how do you actually get started?
Yeah, so we leased the property to start. I actually set up a lease with an option to buy. So we had the price locked in and so forth. It was a 2-year lease. We ended up buying at a year end of the lease. I was trying to get ahead of the interest rates that I saw that were going to start rising and so forth. But yeah, we um, acquired the property. We really had, I mean, other than hand tools and stuff like that, we didn't have anything um, as far as, AC machines, or we didn't have a welder, we didn't have a torch. Oh, we didn't have anything really.
You're speaking with respect to repairing or reconditioning cars? Or?
Yes. Yep. Exactly.
Mm-hmm. So tell me more about that, right? Like, what did you do? Or like, what does day one look like? You just like show up at the auction and like, yo, like, let's buy some cars. Like, what was day one like for you?
We started the business, well, the first month was really startup. So, I was still working full time for my previous job when we acquired the property. I actually continued to work for them for about 6 to 8 months after opening the business. So while I was out working
for the tow truck company,
well, yeah, it was. So that company was more than just a tow truck company. They were auto repair. They had a transport company.
So you were still working there full time while starting up the dealership?
Yes. Yep. So,
were they cool with that, or did they like not know about it?
Well, no.
They were cool with it.
They were cool with it. Yeah. No. I sat down with the owner. I was the GM at the time, and I sat down with them and said, that this is something that I want to do, and
that's refreshing.
Yeah. So, and I was a pretty integral part of his business. I did all the dispatching for the 30 trucks that he had on the road and so forth. So, while I was out, working for him, Austin went around and he set up all of the boot. I was in the process of refinancing my house when we started the business. So I couldn't use my credit for anything because of the refinance process. So Austin went out, he got all of the parts accounts set up, he got the bank account set up while I was still working, using primarily his credit, believe it or not, at 21 years old. And so I continued to work for them for about 6-8 months, while we were starting up the business. And I scaled back my work relationship with them, where I was working remotely, still doing dispatching and so forth while I was at our shop in Humber. What that allowed us to do was not take a salary from the new business for about 8 months.
Everything reinvested.
Yeah, everything reinvested.
So what did you do with inventory? Did you like get a floor plan or, in line of credit? How did you actually fund your inventory initially? And in addition to that, like, how did you know what to buy? As you don't have that, like, you don't have that customer insight yet. It's the cold start problem, right? So how did you know just what to buy from the get go?
We look for value. I mean, that's what it amounts to.
So what do you mean by that?
Well,
what does value mean to you?
Value to me means a vehicle that we can sell at a reasonable price, so that the customer isn't upside down as soon as they buy it, and a vehicle that we can buy at a good price and make a good profit on.
Yeah. So how do you typically? And by the way, I'm asking some of these things like semi-rhetorically for the audience. I have my own opinion as well, which I'm going to share in a second. But how do you source those? Like, what do you look for in that purchase?
To start with, I think it was probably more of the vehicles that needed repairs, that we were able to do and get it reconditioned and really add value to the car.
Yeah, I mean, it's really as simple as that. I think thinking back to like getting started in this business in the early days, it's kind of when you think of some of the bigger players. I remember speaking with Drive Time people, Carvana people. They look, and CarMax people. They look very closely at what they call the kick ratio, which is pretty much cars that don't make it through the recon process get sent back to auction, and it typically triggers a kick, right? You typically send a car back to auction as a dealer when you're, one of these massive corporations. And again, I'm generalizing, but you typically do it when a car, maybe needs too much reconditioning, right? Whatever that threshold is, could be, over X amount of dollars or X amount of panels need to be repaired. But I think that's where the opportunity lies. And that's why I asked that, because I wanted to see how you've done it, because I've seen that opportunity as well. Like when someone asks me, hey, what's the best way to start, the reality is, like you said, it's value. It's look for stuff that needs value add that the bigger guys maybe don't want to deal with. And not stuff that's like, just like structurally compromised or anything like that by any means, nothing like that, but just stuff that maybe needs a little too much work that, a bigger player just, the time is going to take to put into it won't make sense. And so, I totally resonate with that.
Yeah. Our favorite thing is to buy the vehicles that somebody else can't figure out. Whether it's an electrical,
you get the projects. Yeah.
Yeah. Whether it's electrical issue or, a body control module or a PCM, those vehicles that people, beat their head up against the wall trying to figure them out. And we're very good at it. So, we're looking.
Why are you good at it though? Is it you? Is it your technical expertise? Like, what's the secret sauce for you?
It's not just me, because Austin is just as good at it as I am. I've never seen anybody pick up drivability diagnosis as well as he has. I mean, he's been working on cars, since he was in, high school and so forth. But when we started this business, he was green. He knew how to change brakes and he knew how to do, the nuts and bolts stuff. But, he gets wiring diagrams. He can understand how something works, and understanding how something works is how you diagnose it, or how you fix it.
So you're saying your son is a great mechanic, he's a great technician, and that gives you a huge advantage because it allows you to acquire cars that other dealers might not have that competency, and therefore they can't acquire them because they can't fix them.
Absolutely.
Very interesting. So wait, going back to my other question, I think we missed it, is how do you split your duties at the dealership? Like, I know you're 50-50, but what do you do? What does he do?
So we both do everything. I primarily do the bookwork, the bookkeeping and keep everything current as far as that goes. But other than that, and he's got full access to it also. I mean, he looks at the numbers. He knows where we're at day to day also. Throughout the whole business, we do it all. I mean, there isn't anything that we would expect an employee to do that we don't do. So, if a car needs to be detailed and we're the one that's free, we're detailing. If a car needs brake pads put on, we're going to put brakes on it.
How many employees do you have right now?
We have 7 right now.
7?
Yep. When we started, we had Austin, myself, and one other employee.
Mm-hmm. So, since the $40,000 you started the business with, have you put up any more money?
No.
Oh, so the business has been cash flow positive, profitable.
Our first month, I think we acquired the business beginning of July. Our first month was negative, and we've never seen a negative month since then.
Incredible. And does that include any interest payments you're making?
Yep.
Yeah?
Yep.
That's great. Now, how do you finance your inventory?
We do have, we have 2 floor plans, probably about a $500,000 line. And
who are they with?
Kinetic Advantage and AFC.
Mm-hmm. Got it. So you're financing your inventory through both of them. And then, walk me very briefly through that process as a small young dealer upstart. What was it like getting those floor plans? Was it a pretty easy process for you? Again, if anyone's listening to this and wants to start a dealership or get into the business, like, what was that process like for you?
Yeah, so we started with Kinetic, and I think they're based out of Indianapolis or Indiana, maybe Carmel, Indiana, and we had a contact at one of the auctions that was very familiar with the rep here. It was actually very easy. We were probably about 6 months to a year in before we got our first floor plan. Otherwise, we were just financing, just rolling the sales back into the inventory.
And making $1 into $2, going to buy some more inventory.
Yep, absolutely. So when we got the floor plans, we really didn't use it. I mean, we did use it, but we didn't go crazy, and fill the floor plan and I think they gave us $100,000 line to start with. And, you know, we went from having, you know, 8 or 10 cars on the lot to 15, but during that time, that was during COVID also. And it was very hard to source vehicles. Everything was overpriced. So
How are you sourcing right now?
auctions primarily, so trade-ins, but primarily auctions.
Yeah. And what auctions are you using primarily?
So we use mostly local ones. There's an Americans Auto Auction in Fond du Lac. We go to Greater Milwaukee Auto Auction, Jefferson.
As a upstart dealer, is there any specific auction that you think is like the most favorable, the most helpful to young dealers starting the business, or would you say it's pretty equal across the board?
I would say it's pretty equal across the board. Definitely some auctions are better than others. We have one auction that we've tried going to multiple times and their prices are high. So if we're ever going to send a vehicle to auction.
Who's that? Who's that?
The Pier Auto Auction.
Is that just like a
Fox
local
Valley.
auction?
Yeah, Fox Valley Auto Auction.
Yeah, so you send all you get the arbitrage.
No, we don't send many vehicles through the auction.
Of course not. You got to retail that. Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. If we can retail, I mean, usually it's trade-ins, that we're not comfortable selling. We kind of have a saying that if I wouldn't sell it to my daughter, I'm not going to sell it on the lot.
Yeah, I hear you. So tell me a little bit about, I want to dig in more into your business model. So how long have you been in business?
2 years, just over 2 years.
Okay, just over 2 years. And when did you, walk me through how you launched all these adjacent kind of parts to your business? When did you launch the tow truck business? Again, that takes money, right? So when did that happen? Then you launched a Tesla modification business, which is I think it's awesome. You're being super creative. I really like that. So just walk me through the sequencing here. When did all these different businesses launch and why? Why did they launch each one?
Sure. We, with the exception of the Tesla modification business, everything started at the same time. I made a business plan. I was very versed in towing. I was, versed in auto sales, and auto repair. And those were the three aspects of our business. I made a little bit of a mistake, I think, when we started the business, because we named our business, our legal name is Miller Auto Towing and Recovery LLC. If you look at our logo, Miller Auto is prominent because our prominent business was always designed to be car sales. But with the towing and recovery, so we don't do any repoing. Recovery, in my mind, when I created the name, was, getting the vehicles out of the Wisconsin ditches in the winter, and
yeah, and recovery is very much an industry term for repos.
Yep. So it was a little bit of a mistake. I've since rebranded a little bit, and we're just known as Miller Auto now. I just began doing that about a month ago, because what I found was, you get your leads or phone calls on cars or what have you, because we're towing and recovery. Everybody's thinking, are these repo vehicles? Do they have clean titles? And are they salvage vehicles? And that kind of gave it was overcomable, but it gave a little bit of a negative stigma, I think, to our inventory. So we started focusing more on just Miller Auto versus Miller Auto Towing and Recovery.
Yeah. What's it like selling, or I guess different, why launch a Tesla business in Wisconsin? And when I mean a Tesla business, you have a specific part on your website dedicated to selling used Teslas. I feel like Teslas wouldn't sell too well in Wisconsin. And I don't know why I feel that way, but I just feel that way. Am I right? Am I wrong? Walk me through that.
That's why we did it, because Teslas and EVs are very under adopted in Wisconsin versus the rest of the country. There is,
And you just jumped on that opportunity.
there's nobody else playing in the space, you know. So I mean, the bird from
You slick mother effer.
you know the Bergstroms and the big retails. Don't have
Dude,
them.
you're so scrappy. Like, I love it. You're killing me right now. You're like all the nooks and crannies. You're not missing a beat.
Yeah. So my wife and I took our very first vacation in February after opening the business for a week. We went to Arizona. Prior to going, so I've been a very, very small, I mean, almost not even worth mentioning Tesla investor for a while. I have some shares, nothing significant, but um, uh, I've always been intrigued by them. So I love technology and I love cars. That's a Tesla in a nutshell, technology and cars. I mean, so before going on vacation, I put a bid on ACV on a Tesla, 2020 Model 3, had full self-driving, so forth. My bid was rejected. So we ended up going on vacation. I'd never even driven a Tesla before. I just thought they were cool. Went on vacation. Our last day of the vacation, we went to Tesla in Phoenix, Arizona, and I test drove one. I got on the plane. I raised my bid. We took off. When I landed, I won the Tesla. So it was shipped to me, and it all went from there. Again, I'm a car guy. I love internal combustion engines. I like big blocks. I like performance. There's just something about a Tesla with the instant torque, the lack of maintenance. I think that they're going to be superior.
When you say lack of maintenance, how does that impact your business? Because I noticed also that on your service page, like, you don't list oil changes.
Yeah.
Is that because of the Tesla effect, or
No? Auto repair is it's profitable, but for as thin as we run as far as manpower and so forth, it's a time drain. So we do good work. Anybody that does
it's a what? I'm sorry, I missed that. It's a what?
It's a time drain. It takes a lot of time.
Time drain, yeah, of course.
So we do good work when it comes to auto repair and so forth. And anybody that does good work will have work for days. I mean, it's hard to find a trustworthy mechanic and somebody that's not just going to throw parts at vehicles and so forth. So going in, I realized that if we were going to be auto repair, then we were going to be auto repair because we're going to have customers waiting on their cars, so on and so forth. And we just decided that car sales was going to be our primary focus, and we were going to pick and choose what services we wanted to offer to the general public. And that's where the brakes and steering suspension, your
Oh, I get it. Believe me.
your
Yeah, we never went like all into service. We had a service center, and then we upgraded to a reconditioning center that was offsite, like not retail, open to retail and stuff like that. But I totally get it. So, but with you buying value add cars, like deep value add, how are you seeing? How are you dealing with customer issues like later, like a month, 2-3 months down the line? Like, is that manageable? Do you have a lot of stuff coming back? Like, how are you dealing with that?
No, we do. We absolutely try and do our best not to have anything come back. And we do have comebacks, but we stand behind
as every dealer, yeah.
Yeah, we stand behind the vehicles that we sell. So, I mean, I've went as far as we sold a 2018 Ford Escape. It had like 120,000 miles on it, 2-liter. I personally drove that car 800 miles before we sold it. I took it to Minnesota to pick up one of our wreckers, and brought it back. Not 200 miles after we sold it, it started misfiring and had the coolant intrusion issues. So what do? I mean, a customer bought this vehicle, 200 miles they put on it. I ordered a short block. We put a short block in it at no cost to the customer. So, I mean, that's how you make a name for yourself. And our reputation is very important.
Yeah. I mean, no, look, I think you're you're focusing on every single car. And I think the only downside I would say to that is like, how scalable is that? Right? Like at some point, you can't drive every car for, a week, 2, 3 weeks, a month,
Yep. Yeah. And it's very hard now that I have a Tesla. I don't want to drive anything else.
You don't want to drive the rest of the car.
But no, we do a very good job of reconditioning them. We at least typically probably put 100 plus miles on them. Our sales manager, Nina,
Smart.
he lives, probably about a 40-minute commute. Austin and I both live around a 40-minute commute away from the shop. So we all drive the vehicles, and and we listen to our customers when they're test driving them. If they come back and they say, hey, something feels, goofy with this or what have you, which doesn't happen very often. But if we do have one of those complaints, it's not like, oh, yeah, you know what you're talking about. See you later. We'll take a ride with them, see what they're experiencing, and then correct it.
How many cars are you selling right now per week?
Per week, we're probably
Or per month?
Probably around 20 per month. Honestly, we were running probably 10 to 12 a month. And we've almost doubled that after we started advertising on cars.com.
Really?
Yeah. So cars.com has been very, very good for us. We started with one of our locations, with our Nina location, because it's a little bit higher population and so forth. And it wasn't, probably 3 weeks after that we added the second location to it.
Wow. So yeah, I should ask you, like, how do you advertise? Is it like only cars.com? Do you do anything else?
Yeah. So when we started, we weren't really doing anything other than our website and marketplace, Facebook Marketplace. We had carsforsale.com that we tried a little bit, but I think that's great if you're a dealer that doesn't have the means to build a website. I mean, we're getting daily leads from cars.com, and I think higher quality leads than Marketplace. Marketplace has been very good for us too.
Yeah.
I mean,
what about like Facebook, just Facebook ads, Instagram? Do you do any of that stuff?
We don't do any Facebook not for our vehicles anyway. I played a little bit with the Teslas and with towing. We do run Google ads for the towing business here and there. We don't always run ads, but
so walk me through for a second. If we take like a bird's eye view of your business and what are you right now profiting on a monthly basis?
Net profit, we're probably 30 grand.
Mm-hmm. And that's 30 grand on, or like, what, what percentage margin that is, or
Yeah. So before we opened the second location, we're running about a 20% net margin.
Net margin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right now we're with the new location. We're 6-8 months into the new location. We're running about 16%. So it dropped a little bit, but
I mean, it's still great. You're still outperforming industry.
Yeah, we're doing. I'm pretty happy with where we're at. I mean, I'm a numbers guy, so I mean, you can walk into my dealership any day, and I can tell you what our bottom line is.
Oh yeah, I love that. Yeah, you're on top of your numbers.
Yeah, that's important. I've worked for a lot of places that operated based on what their checkbook balance was, and it's like, I don't know how you do it.
So basically, you've just reinvested that. Like, that's how you purchase your tow trucks. That's how you've, expanded the business.
We bought 2 tow trucks right out of the gate. So we had 2 rollbacks when we started. I bought those from the company that I left when I started the business. He had a couple extra trucks and made us a good deal. And since I think we have 6, 4 rollbacks, flatbeds, if you will, and two wreckers. So we have 6 trucks.
And in terms of your monthly, like your average monthly profit, what percentage of that, or what portion of that is from car sales, and what's from like tow truck business and everything else?
Yeah. So from a gross aspect, 75% of our revenue, 74% of our revenue is from car sales from a gross perspective. Towing and transport's about 20%, 21%, and auto repair is about 5%.
I'd imagine that the car sales is the lower margin stuff.
Yeah. So if you look at gross profit numbers, towing and transport, gross profit is about the same as car sales.
Interesting. Yet it's only 20% of your business.
Yeah. So the gross margin on car sales is right around probably 25-30%, and we're about 80% gross margin. Not including payroll, obviously.
Yeah. So tell me, and then in terms of just like nominal figures, like how much are you actually making on a car? You sell a car for 10 grand. How much money are you making?
Our goal is to be 2 to 3 grand a car.
Got it. And is that after paying commissions and advertising and all that, or
Pre-commission, after advertising and so forth, though.
pre-commission after advertising? Got it.
Okay. We don't. So we have one sales manager besides Austin and I. That sell cars. So we 3 licensed sales people. We don't pressure sell any cars. The cars sell themselves. So we do
the deals sell themselves. When you're selling deep value add, people come from anywhere in the country, I'm going to guess.
Yeah. So the commissions on our dealership probably aren't as much of an expense as it would be for a larger franchise dealer or something like that.
Yeah, I think, look, you've built a business that is reliant upon yourself, but there's the way I see scaling is like, I always, dealers used to just have conversation stuff. Hey, should I open up another store? This and that. I believe it's you either, open up like 3 to 5 stores, or you keep one store. Like that teeter-tottering, and I know you have 2 stores, by the way, so we'll get to that. But what I'm trying to say is like, there's a point, right? There's a point at scale where you're adding cost faster than you're adding margin, and you're not getting the full effect of that operating leverage. And so, you know what I mean? And so I'm curious, like, on your end, like, you have 2 stores, right? How are you managing that? You can't be in both places at once. How are you doing that?
Manpower. I mean, our sales manager, Brian, is in Neenah.
Oh, got it. So you have that sales manager over there, and then you're kind of holding the fort down in the other store.
Yep. And well, between Austin and I, yeah. So, but Brian is primarily, I'll go days without going to the Neenah location. But he's got it covered. He's doing deals. He's working with, Dealer Center to get, stuff set up, or, he's finding indirect financing. He's, we couldn't do it. We couldn't do 2 locations without him as effectively as we are.
Of course. Yeah. What about like warranties or, vehicle service contracts? Are you offering all that to your customers?
Yeah. So we do have a couple different warranty companies. AUL is one of them. We just signed up with another one. I'm not sure off the top of my head what the name of it is. We're finalizing that. So, but we didn't for, I think we've only been with AUL for the last 3 months, something like that. It's very difficult. And probably one of the toughest things about a small startup dealership is getting people to return your calls. That's probably been the most frustrating.
Wait, so when you say it's tough to get people to call you back, are you referring to like vendors?
Yeah.
Or are you referring to you're referring to like industry vendors.
Industry vendors, yeah.
So I want to dive a little bit deeper into the Tesla stuff you got going on.
Sure.
In terms of like the Trick My Tesla, it's one of the pages on your website. You do like these Tesla modifications. How, like, are you doing a lot of these? Is it kind of a niche product, or like, what do you see there?
Yeah, it's we I guess we do a fair amount of them. It slowed down a little bit, but a lot of it depends on how active we are on social media also. So that's where most of that stuff comes from. So we sponsor the Tesla Club of Wisconsin, and we're involved in their community, go to some of their events and so forth. And if, you know, the Power Frank and the Yokes are probably the two main things that we install. And all it takes is doing one install and having somebody post a video of the new Power Frank I got from Miller Auto, and I got 3 or 4 more.
But are you getting customers from Wisconsin specifically, or from all over the country?
Wisconsin specifically. Yeah. Well, some Illinois.
And then zooming out, back on the Tesla conversation, when Elon had went with the price cuts, did that hurt? What did that feel like for you? And having your vehicles drop in value. Talk to me about that.
Yeah.
Because you mentioned only one losing month, which is the first one.
Right.
So
right.
But I'm still curious to hear how that felt.
Yeah. So that was the closest month that we had to losing again. But Austin and I enter into every new venture with a backup plan. So
what's the backup plan here? What was it?
Yeah. So we had 3 or 4 Teslas on the lot when we saw the prices start going down. We got lucky. We got rid of one of them. Actually, we sold 2 of them. But our backup plan was always that if we couldn't sell a Tesla, we were going to buy a personal. So I now have a 2021 Model Y, and Austin has a 2017 Tesla Model S, which from the very first time that we had a Tesla in inventory, I knew that the next vehicle that was registered in my name was going to be a Tesla. So I'm good with it. So right now we have 1 Tesla available for sale. It's a consigned vehicle. We're kind of just taking a pause on the Tesla used sales at this point. I think they're going to be very good in the future. But while the EV tax credit is going on and Elon's lowering the prices and so forth, again, we like to do things that make sense for the customers. And if a customer can get that $7,500 tax credit, that makes sense.
And what's the feedback you're seeing though from customers? When they're coming to you for an EV, for a Tesla, are they surprised you're carrying these in Wisconsin, or is there wow, I can actually buy this here if I want to? What is that reaction like from the customer?
Yeah, so that was another reason why we wanted to carry that Tesla inventory, because go and take a Tesla for a test drive. I mean, it's not easy. You can go to Tesla, you can schedule an appointment, you can take a test drive and so forth, but there is no impulse available with Tesla. You can't drive past and say, "Holy crap, there's a Tesla on the lot."
Yeah, but you are that impulse. You are that on-demand test drive. Come to Miller Auto.
Yeah, absolutely. And for our non-EV buying customers, it's a great talking point. I mean, they all. I shouldn't say they all. A lot of them ask about it, and a lot of them come in, with negative opinions about Teslas, and we'll talk to them and we'll take them for a drive, whether they're, a buyer or not. And once they do, it's like, holy cow, these things are cool.
Wow. Yeah, dude, you're evangelizing it. Good for you. Very, very cool. And then when it comes to charging and all that, are people concerned about that when they buy from you, especially in Wisconsin, which I'd have to imagine the charging infrastructure is not that advanced? Just my guess, because it's not a coastal city. So is that true?
Yeah, actually, no. You can drive pretty much anywhere in Wisconsin. There's superchargers everywhere.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
that's good.
So I mean, there's one 8 miles away from our store. There's.
I wouldn't have guessed that.
Yeah, I think they've opened 4 in Wisconsin just this year alone. So, and that's one of the reasons why we've focused on Teslas more than any other EVs, because the charging infrastructure is there. The charging infrastructure isn't there for, the Fords, the Lightnings, Mach-E's and so forth. So I'd like to get into those. But until until they start coming out, using Tesla supercharger or more infrastructure comes out, it's a hard sell, for the customer that wants to, do anything more than commute.
So before we wrap up, I want to just go like more macro. Interest rates. I've had so many discussions with dealers about just interest rates and how it's been impacting their floor plans and just overall business. How has it impacted you, would you say, right? From the lending perspective. Actually, we didn't even talk about consumer lending. I want to touch on that, but on when it comes to your line of credits and stuff like that, are you feeling the impact of interest rates on a micro level?
Yeah, to a certain degree anyway. Most of our inventory we're able to move, in a pretty decent timeline. Um, if we don't move it, again, with the reinvesting into the business, if it's a vehicle that hasn't sold, that's coming due for a curtailment, or is nearing the end of the floor plan term, and it's a good value car, and there's no reason to auction it off. We just pay it off and take it off the floor plan. It'll sell.
So you're saying you just fund it with your cash if it gets to that point, and
Yeah. So we've used car sales. It's interesting because I watch the market. I listen to your podcasts. I follow Twitter, see what's going on. And I'm more conservative than Austin is. And he's probably been right more than I have because we get our lot full of inventory, and I'm like, we need to slow down. We got to move some cars before we start buying more cars. And he's like, but Dad, he says, they're going to sell. And when we can buy them, it's interesting because sales will slow down. We're able to buy them, stock up our lot. And then all of a sudden we'll sell everything, and we don't have any cars left. And so he keeps me on that even keel where we're just
the
constantly.
nature of the beast. The nature of the beast. It oscillates. It goes up and it goes down. But yeah, you got to stay steady and consistent.
Yeah.
That's what I've learned in this business. You know what I mean? You can't react emotionally because you just missed the boat. So staying steady and consistent. And then when it comes to consumer lending, one of the biggest pain points for dealers, independent dealers, just lending, financing for their customers. How did you do that?
Yeah. So
Like, do you offer lending? Go ahead.
yeah, we're just now finally getting set up with indirect lending.
You're just starting now.
Yes. So we have two lenders set up as indirect lenders.
And who are they?
We have a local credit union that services Wisconsin, and we're hopefully just finalizing Westlake Financial, which I've not worked with.
And if any lenders, because there is a good, healthy amount of lenders that listen to this podcast, they should reach out to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And get you set up on their platform. Yeah, because there's some good lenders that follow the podcast. So
yeah, for sure. We've done a lot of deals with local credit unions and so forth, but it's always been, direct to consumer. Which is difficult.
So what did you do before getting indirect lending? And also for anyone in the audience that doesn't know what indirect lending means, it just means that the dealer is set up with a lender through a portal. And when you come to the dealership, they get you financing through a third-party lender, right? So they're not financing it themselves. Rather, they get hooked up with, just giving hypothetical examples, a Wells Fargo, a Capital One, a Westlake, a credit acceptance. And that's who actually finances your deal, or, it's facilitated that way. So going back to that question, how did you initially do your lending, did you say?
So we would work with, loan officers and so forth, send purchase contracts and so forth. But it was ultimately the customer's responsibility to reach out to their financial institution, which we didn't have much problems getting consumers to follow through with it, especially if, it was a vehicle that they wanted and had the means. We've never really got into subprime or don't really plan to get into subprime. We do some buy here, pay here stuff, but on a very case by case basis, just depending.
Oh man, you're bringing me back to the roots. This is so awesome.
Yeah.
I love what you're doing. Seriously, keep it up. Thanks for being a follower. and just, supporter of CDG. For the audience, for any potential business partners, for anyone that wants to reach out to you, what's the best way to get in contact with you or to learn more about Miller Autos?
Sure. MillerATR.com is our website. Our email's on there. I'm actively stalking Twitter. I don't post a whole lot, but MillerATR is our Twitter handle. Facebook, MillerATR LLC. So don't do much on LinkedIn either.
Miller ATR. I love it. All right, Brandon, thanks so much for coming on. Any last words, anything else you want to say before we hop off?
No, keep doing what you're doing. I think you do a great job at what you do, and I'll be watching.
Appreciate it, man. Thanks so much.
All right, you bet.
All right. Hope you enjoyed that episode. Please give the podcast a rating, consider subscribing to the show, and check the show notes for links to what we talked about. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you guys next time.